live in interesting times. Today's stories. Russia probes terror after a teen suicide attack on the FSB security agency. Wildfires rage through South Africa's Garden Route. UN chief names Geir Pedersen as the new UN envoy to Syria. World Food Program urges international help for Rohingya. Plus, the Iglesia Ni Cristo and the FYM Foundation bring warmth to a Manhattan community. Hello everyone, I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Russia launched a terrorism probe Wednesday after a 17-year-old student blew himself up at the regional headquarters of the FSB security agency, wounding 3 employees. Several minutes before the suicide blast in the northern city of Arkhangelsk, a post of an anarchist forum warned of an imminent explosion.
Сегодня утром в тамбуре здания Управления ФСБ России по Архангельской области произошел взрыв. В результате происшествия погиб 17-летний местный житель, который пронес в здание самодельное взрывное устройство. 3 сотрудников ФСБ получили ранения. Предследственная группа будет тщательно исследовать круг общения несовершеннолетнего, взаимоотношения и обстановку в семье и техникуме, где он проходил обучение. Также будет проверяться информация о возможном участии лица, совершившего преступление, в деятельности запрещенных организаций.
Investigators said they were checking whether the suspected bomber was a member of any banned organizations. Authorities said an explosive device detonated in the FSB building shortly before 9 a.m. Investigators identified the bomber as a 17-year-old local resident. Probing the attack, the investigators released a photo of the suspect, a skinny young man with a backpack, inside the FSB building. Authorities have cordoned off streets around the building, with police and experts combing the area for clues. Attacks on police and security services are common in Russia's restive northern Caucasus, but are rare in the rest of the country. President Vladimir Putin himself, a former FSB officer, was informed about the explosion, his spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, but declined to speculate on the motive. Investigators said they have opened a probe into terrorism and illegal possession of ammunition. Alexander Bastrykin, the head of the investigative committee probing the case, said the young man's motives should be established as soon as possible. Investigators searched Shubitsky's apartment and questioned his relatives and friends. 3 FSB employees were hospitalized with injuries after the blast in Arkhangelsk, which is more than 620 miles north of Moscow. Disaster Management Services said Monday raging wildfires have killed 7 people, including a baby and a pregnant woman, in a farming settlement along South Africa's famed Garden Route. Firefighters have been battling to quell the blazes that started last week along the Southern Tourist Trail. Colin Diner, head of Western Cape Provincial Disaster Management Services, confirmed there are 7 fatalities, of which 1 is a woman who was 8 months pregnant. He added that a baby was among the dead. Diner said the fires have burnt around 16,600 hectares and had forced a precautionary evacuation of 3 suburbs housing more than 1,500 people. Local media reported that students from one campus of the Nelson Mandela University, situated on the foot of Kwetenikwa Mountains in the town of George, were also evacuated. At least 400 firefighters have been deployed to try and contain the blaze raging in the area around 280 miles east of Cape Town. Up next, UN chief names Geir Pedersen as the new UN envoy to Syria. World Food Program urges international help for Rohingya. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has informed the Security Council that he wishes to appoint Norwegian diplomat Geir Pedersen as the next special envoy to Syria. Pedersen is currently Norway's ambassador to China and has previously served as its envoy to the United Nations. The leaders of Turkey, Russia, France, and Germany met in Istanbul at the weekend and called for a political solution to the war and a permanent truce in the last major rebel-held bastion of Idlib. Their joint statement called for a committee to be established to draft Syria's post-war constitution before the end of the year, paving the way for free and fair elections in the war-torn country. The Syria conflict, which began with anti-government street protests in 2011, has claimed more than 360,000 lives and drawn in foreign powers and various jihadist groups. The World Food Programme chief urged the international community Wednesday to step up their efforts to end the ongoing Rohingya crisis, saying the world needs to find a solution to this issue. Over 720,000 Rohingya from northern Rakhine state fled their homes last year after Myanmar military launched a brutal crackdown targeting the Muslim minority. They took shelter in the squalid and overcrowded camps in Cox's Bazar district in Bangladesh's southeast, where over 200,000 were already living in harrowing conditions. Following a two-day visit to the camps, WFP Executive Director David Beasley said he was happy to see obvious improvements, but said all got to find solutions to the crisis.
I think we're seeing the beginning of repatriation. What's the realistic scenario? We talked to, you're familiar with this 8,000 people, but that's 8,000 out of a little less than 1 million. I don't even know if that's a drop in the bucket. We've got to find solutions. The international community has got to find solutions to this dilemma. It's not fair to a single child inside these camps.
His comments came a day after Bangladesh and Myanmar have agreed to start repatriating some 700,000 refugees from mid-November. It is not clear, however, as to how many Rohingya would return in the first phase, although Bangladeshi media said Myanmar has cleared the repatriation of some 8,000 people. Investigators have said senior Myanmar military officials should be prosecuted for genocide in Rakhine State, but the country has rejected these calls, insisting it was defending itself against militants. Myanmar and Bangladesh announced a large-scale repatriation plan in November 2017, but the process hit bureaucratic hurdles almost immediately, and it failed to take off as both sides blamed the other for the delay, and rights group warned returning the Rohingya to Myanmar would condemn them to further reprisals. Authorities in Buddhist-majority Myanmar say more than 100 displaced Rohingya have returned in recent months, but Bangladesh insists that the official process has not commenced.
A solution has not been found either today or it will not be found tomorrow for the more than 900,000 refugees in Cox's Bazar. We have to make sure that they get access to education activities, to make sure that we will not leave this huge numbers of children and young people behind. They have to have a chance to use their potential, to have hopes for the future.
When we come back, the Iglesia Ni Cristo and the FYM Foundation bring warmth to a Manhattan community. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglekmot. Because winter is coming, Quite a number of individuals dread the cold, especially here in the East Coast. In New York, the Iglesia ni Cristo reached out and brought warmth to a Manhattan community as temperatures start to drop. Eagle News junior correspondent Noah Edralin reports.
With temperatures dropping, New Yorkers are preparing for a cold winter. The Iglesia ni Cristo, together with the Felix Ramanala Foundation, are helping a Manhattan community brave the cold by holding an Aid to Humanity event. Donations of coats, scarves, sweaters, gloves, and blankets were provided to neighborhood residents.
Some people are less fortunate than others, and it's hard to believe in a country as rich as ours that there's poverty.
Temperatures can be devastating if you don't have the correct clothing to warm you up. Because sometimes the temperatures can get below freezing, sometimes it's below zero.
I walked by and one of the church members asked me if I needed a coat, and I had a little jacket on, and it was kind of cold. So he must have read my mind, and I walked in. I'm glad I walked in.
I came in here to see if I could find a coat, and this is a lot about what I was looking for. It's weatherproof, it's long, so I gave my coat in, and I have this wonderful garment.
Thank God that your church gave me a nice coat for this winter that is, I think it's going to be really cold, like the past one.
I tell you, here in the Northeast, it can be brutal in the winter, and as you can see, I picked up on the coat drive a beautiful warm coat. I also got one for my wife. Well, she couldn't come, but she'll be glad to have it, and I know she'll appreciate it just as much as I appreciate it. And I want to thank the Church of Christ for this coat drive. It's, you know, it's a blessing.
Because of organizations like the Iglesia ni Cristo and Felix Ramanala Foundation, communities will be ready to face the winter. I'm Noah Edralin, reporting from New York City, and I'm one with 25.
Thank you, Noah. You keep warm as well. That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us again tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot, always one with 25.